Right, here we are. Thank you, Joy, for joining me on the podcast, which at the moment is called Art of Midwifery, but it's going to be on YouTube and it's going to be Ebony Talks Birth. So, Joy Horner, welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Oh, thanks, Ebony. I'm Joy Horner, and you see, it's really difficult, isn't it? You'd think that was a really simple question, but what am I? What do I do? I haven't come up with a title for it yet. I think Birthkeeper is the closest I've got. I used to be a midwife for 21 years. I was a nurse for something like 17 years before that. Do antenatal education, and it's really hard, isn't it? I'm a mum. I've got two grown-up kids. My eldest is 28 and my youngest is 24, and they're both absolutely superb human beings. My eldest is trans and has been the happiest they've ever been in their life since starting on that journey.
That's so good.
I've got rescue animals and a husband. I always forget the husband bit.
Oh yeah, one of those. I got one of them.
Yeah.
So we've known each other some while, haven't we? We sort of like our careers have been quite parallel in some ways, and I know I did my training in Portsmouth, and you were first an independent midwife in Portsmouth, and as I said before I started the recording, we're going to come back and interview you some more about your experiences, like with Mary Cronk and with breeches, and that will be really good. But I know today's episode is looking sort of following on from the article that was wrote that in the Association of Radical Midwives journal recently, about, it was a shared article with you and in conversation with Ollie the editor and Kemi Johnson, about how you have decided, you've come off of the register, the midwifery register in the UK, and are supporting birth in a different way. And I would love to know more about how that journey happened, and what are you doing now? So maybe what led up to it, and how you made that decision, because that's definitely something that resonates very much with me for a long time, as I know that at the moment I can either in the UK be an NHS midwife, which I enjoy doing, but it comes with its own set of challenges, or I can be an independent midwife, but I need to have a lot of insurance, or I don't have insurance at the moment. I don't think there is insurance for the truly independent midwives, and it costs thousands of pounds, which and still, because you're insured, there's guidelines and so on, and it's very hard to be able to find a way. And I can't doula because I have to be insured, because I'm a registered midwife. So I can't even support people just as a birth partner anymore, where I was doing it. So tell me, Joy, how did you get to this place? And what's been happening?
Yeah, it's a real long process, Ebony, and I know you know half of it. I've tried to leave lots of times, and I always say to people, I never had a calling to be a midwife. It sounds dreadful, doesn't it? Everyone says, oh, I've had a calling and it was all I ever wanted to do, or I had a birth and, I knew that I had to be a midwife. I didn't have any of that. I've got to put my hands up here and say, I did my nurse training, which was 3 years. I worked for about 18 months after that on an elderly care ward, realised that I didn't want to go up the ladder. I didn't want to work in hospital. Bummed around for a bit, thought, what am I going to do next? I'll do a course. Midwifery is just another 18 months. It means I'll have something to do while I work out what I want to do. And I didn't like it, Ebony. I really didn't like it. So it was an 18-month course on top of my 3 years nursing. And we practiced active management of labour. So this is 1988.
Oh, yes.
And
I signed a form to say I would have that with my eldest in 1995. Yeah. Do you want to have your baby out in 12 hours? We'll break the waters, we'll put a drip up. Yeah. And at the time I was totally naive and I went, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
signed it. I was lucky. I escaped without any of that, but
Goodness, well, I believed it as a student midwife. I went in totally green. I knew nothing about birth. I was, what was I, 22 or something? Yeah, about 22. And I believed what I was being told. I believed we could save women and birthing people the pain and the agony of being in a long, protracted labour. And I believed that if I cut an episiotomy on every primip, I would prevent her having a 3rd-degree tear. I believed it, bloody hook, line and sinker, Evany. And yet my heart knew that something was very, very wrong, because there were very traumatized women, very damaged babies, you know, a high forceps rate. Cesarean rate wasn't very high, but you know, the damage that was done by forceps, you know, we did an awful lot more forceps, I'm sure. And it just didn't sit right. Something was really, really wrong. And I thought, I'm not cut out for this. You know, perhaps I shouldn't be a midwife. I don't think I can do it. One of my one of my patients, as it was at the time, was on a monitor, I was telling you earlier, and the heart rate went and her baby died. And I was a newly qualified midwife, and I couldn't break this feeling that I couldn't have prevented that. You know, of course, there was an inquest and everything. I couldn't have prevented it. What's midwifery about? You know, what's the point of listening in? What's the point of midwives? We can't save babies. So I left and I returned to nursing for a number of years. I don't know, 12 years or something. I was a factory nurse, which I really enjoyed because it fitted in well with my kids being at school. And I started teaching NCT classes. I got my diploma with the NCT. And do you know, women kept saying to me, I wish you were still a midwife, Joy. And I'd shrug it off and say, yeah, I don't want to do that. It's too much like hard work. I don't want to do that. And more of them kept asking. And I thought, well, I'll just see what the return to practice training is going to be. It's a bit of a long story, this, Ev. Basically, I phoned up the university and they said, we're running the return to practice course. We're interviewing tomorrow. And here's the questions that we're going to ask you. And I thought, is that the universe sort of giving me a heavy push? Yeah. And saying, perhaps you ought to do this, Joy. And I thought, oh, I'll just do the course. I'll probably not work as a midwife afterwards. I'll just do the course. So I did the course. And then they offered me a job working at the hospital. And I said, I'm not working on labour ward, you know, and I'm certainly not working shifts because I've got this other cushy nursing job that I'm doing. You know, if you give me a job in the birth centre and just 2 regular slots a week, you know, Tuesday and a Thursday I can do, but I can't, you know, that's, and they said yes.
How amazing. That would be unheard of.
I know. And again, I thought, oh, the universe is telling me I ought to be working in the birth centre. I'll give it a go. Yeah. And so I ended up working there for 3 years until we had a change of management and they wanted me to do internal rotation, days and nights. And I couldn't do it alongside my other job because that was 2 nights a week. I couldn't be doing days and nights, you know, alternately. I just couldn't. And one of my antenatal class, maybe a couple of my antenatal class, but one in particular wanted me as their independent midwife. And I said, right, okay, I'll cut down at the birth centre. I'll just do 1 night a week there. It will probably not clash, but I'll check with the head of midwifery, just see how it goes if I take on you independently. And the head of midwifery at the time said, yeah, take her on, Joy. She said, oh, I'll check it out with the trust solicitors just to check it's all, you know, above board. So I went and booked the woman, came back, told the head of midwifery, and she said, you've got to hand your notice in. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you've broken your contract, you've got to hand your notice in. And I said, yeah, but you told me to go and book her. No, I didn't.
Oh.
Okay, the universe is giving me another big boot up the bum and telling me that there's another way, there's another path. So I did start to be an independent midwife, not out of choice, because I always consider myself a bit of a coward. I'm not brave. I'd never have chosen to be an independent midwife because I'm not brave enough. Yeah, so that's what started me on the path, you know, to independent midwifery. And I did that for, I don't know, 16, 17 years, whatever it was. Yeah, so that sort of brings us up sort of to the present day. So in that time of being an independent midwife, several of my clients lost babies. And in that time, whenever a baby died and I was caring for that family, you know, you have to undergo the investigations, and you have to search your soul about, you know, did you miss something? Did you do anything wrong? What would you do differently if you could do it over again? And every single time I wanted to leave midwifery and said, that's it, I'm not doing it anymore.
Absolutely.
This, I can't prevent this, you know, this keeps happening, I can't prevent it. But then I'd get the next phone call, you know, I'm expecting a breech baby, can you help me? And I'd say, have you tried all the other providers? You know, have you tried Catherine Weymouth, and, you know, all these other good people are out there. Yes, I've tried them all. No, I haven't, and I want you. And I really tried to wriggle out of it. And I'd even say, what will you do if I don't look after you? You know, what's your plan? And a couple of them said, well, I'll free birth. And I thought, well, you know, I'm a great believer in free birth. I do believe and trust birth, but you shouldn't have to do it because there isn't an alternative.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it should be a truly informed choice. Yeah, so the only calling I've ever had, Ebony, is women calling me back time and time again when I want to bloody leave. And then I got to a point where I thought, oh, perhaps they're calling me back because perhaps I'm okay at doing this, you know, perhaps I've got something to offer. Yeah, but I didn't sort of fully realise that till, yeah, a lot later. Yeah, so the choice to come off the register in the end was informed by a number of things. So menopause, making me reevaluate everything, look at the rest of my life, decide what I want to be doing from here. My sister's passing, which was nearly 3 years ago now. The fact that I've got a couple of long-term boring health conditions. So I really don't want to be up all night, you know, as an independent midwife. You know, if you've had those 48-hour labours at my age, I just can't be doing that now. Whereas as a doula, you can, because you can get your head down now and again, can't you? Because
it is different. Yeah, yeah.
Different, yeah. Yeah, so I had a few things all sort of coincide, and I was due to re-register in March, and I like round numbers, Ebony. I'm a bit funny. And I thought, if I re-register, I would have been a health professional for 40 years. You know,
Whoa.
I can say I've been a health professional for 40 years rather than 37. You know, 37 is quite good enough for me. Not that I was aiming for 40, but yeah. And I thought, yeah, but I don't know, because you've got to jump through hoops. And I've probably done enough in the past 3 years to revalidate. And, oh, but I don't know. And I was firmly on the fence. And then I got a call in. So I got a call from a client who said, I've been really traumatized previously. I just want support in my pregnancy to get me to the point of birth. I'm birthing in hospital. And I thought, great, I can do that. You know, still being a registered midwife, that's not outside my remit. Don't need insurance. I mean, I got RCN insurance, or I had. Yeah, I can do that. Well, the closer we get to birth, Ebony, the more she decides she wants me to attend her birth.
Yeah, yeah.
So I contact the only insurance provider that there is now, who said basically they wouldn't take me back on their books. I've been on their books before, but they didn't want me back. me and Deb Snyder and who knows who else. And I think it's because we are our own autonomous practitioners.
Really?
You know, don't strictly adhere to guidelines and do as we're told. I can't think of another reason. So again, the universe was saying to me, Joy, perhaps that's not the path, because I thought I'll need insurance just to attend this woman in hospital. Because you do, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
I won't be doing anything, but I need that insurance. And I thought, oh my goodness, because I'd really bonded with this woman, and what do I do? You know, I could go in illegally without insurance. I've done that before. You know, it doesn't matter a hoot to me. But I don't know. I could feel this transition happening, and it was March, and I had to revalidate or not, and the time was getting shorter and shorter. And I sat there on the NMC website. I looked at it one day and thought, oh, I wonder what the process is. And I sort of pressed the buttons, And before I knew it, I'd clicked the don't re-register, take me off the register. And I went, oh, that was interesting. It wasn't a conscious thought. I didn't sit down and think, right, today is the day I'm going to sit at my computer and do the thing. I just thought I'd explore what the process was, and the divine worked through me and guided my hand.
Amazing. It's very much
God,
I wonder, I don't know what Kemi's was, her sort of story of coming off, but I did sort of, so I let it lapse a few years ago. So it's like I got to the point where I thought, no, if I don't re-register, I have no choice. I can't go back and keep going back and doing bank shifts and things like that, which, as much as like now the unit I work for in Cornwall is way better than it used to be, but you know, it's I still am my own person, so it is not without its challenges being in the NHS. And so I didn't, the revalidation thing came through. It was like, it was all on paper then, I think, and you had to send it off, and I thought, well, I just won't do it. So that was like September, and then January came and I had another letter going, by the way, are you sure? And I went, no, maybe I'm not. And I sort of like quickly did it and went back. So it's like I came so close. And now when you said that, I'm thinking, I wonder when my next period is up. You know, I need to have a look at that. And because I'm feeling that, you know, it's like you said, I think when you've worked in the way that we have, where you literally you work for the client and for the family, that if you get that literally the calling where somebody says, I want you to be there, because, and you've got that relationship with them and you want them to support them, it's, with all the constraints of the world in insurance and registering and all this sort of stuff, it's like that some of us, it's like, this is bullshit, for want of a better word, you know, where I can't actually be there for you because there is a rule that says I can't be there for you. You know?
Yeah, why couldn't I support that woman in hospital? You know, what was I going to do that would, you know, that she'd have to make a claim against me? I was supporting her.
And you know, as like I mean we both know Vanessa out in Spain. We're at Darluth, and I'll put the links in the notes and things on the YouTube and stuff. But like she says, you know, there's a, you know, you either carry on doing what we're doing or you look at a different way, and that's, you know, who knows what might come. But if those of us who can see it, you know, you just see things. I don't think of myself as being radical in any way, and you know, it's just like, I just am what I am and I think what I think, you know, and maybe I'm a bit of a free thinker. But for other people, it is very much out of the box thinking. But some of us have got to think a bit out of the box. Otherwise, I don't want the box to carry on forever and ever, you know, for people, and to reduce people's choices and their right to autonomy in their birth. And but like you said, that choice to have a free birth, absolutely, I don't have an issue with it. I support people who make a truly autonomous, empowered choice about that for them, that's really what they want to do. They want to experience it in its fullest. And I've seen it being talked about like wild pregnancy. So basically you care for yourself or you trust your body. Absolutely. And I know people have done it, but it shouldn't be a case of having to do it because no one will support you, you know, and not having somebody who is a, you know, for want of the old word, like a wise woman in the corner, or somebody who, you know, that you can just, that you don't have to be in your headspace when you're birthing your baby.
And that's it completely, Ebony. I really had to, in that lead up to me just sitting at the computer that day, there was a lot of you know, what does it actually mean to be a midwife? You know, what does that title mean to me? Is it that important? You know, that I'd let it get
very true.
Yeah, that I'd let it get in the way of actually caring for people that I want to care for.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I'd rather care for people in the way that I want to care for them. yeah, because it's always been about service for me. As I said, I never wanted to be a midwife. I got to a point where I had lots of experience, and people wanted me at their births, but yeah, and it's not that I don't want to be at birth, it's just that I never wanted any of the glory from it, Evany. I never got, you know, some people say, yeah, you know, gave me such a buzz, I came away on a high, and it does something different to me. It connects with a very deep sort of spiritual part of me, and I realise its importance in the world, you know, and it's not about selfies with the baby that you delivered, and it's not about numbers. You know, people say, how many babies have you delivered? Well, very, very few, because delivery means that I had to intervene and, you know, help a baby out, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I've worked with lots and lots of families. Yeah, and it was something that you said about Vanessa and the way
Creating a new, sort of saying that, you know, you either stay that way
yes,
or create something
yes,
else.
that's it. And I feel that my job at the moment is filling that gap. Someone has to fill that gap. And there are beautiful people like Liz Nightingale, you know, the birth friend.
Yes,
And
she was the first one that I knew of
yeah,
that had
yeah,
taken the step. Yeah.
yeah. Hats off to Liz. I contacted her and I said, Liz, I think I want to do this and I'm not sure. And what do you think? And, you know, send me your contract, you know, because I don't want anyone to be under any illusion. Yes, I'm still a midwife. Yes, you can't take the midwifery out of me. I'm not a registered midwife. I don't do the things that registered midwives do. You know, if I'm at a birth, I won't be acting as a midwife if I help someone, because I am a midwife. You know,
Yes.
it's written
Yeah.
through me like words in a stick of rock. You know,
Yeah.
it's hardwired into my soul. You cannot take that experience out of me. But I don't call myself a midwife because people might think I'm a registered midwife and get the wrong idea and think I've got drugs and resus equipment. And, you know, I don't do any of that, you know. But if a baby was slow to breathe, or if we had an unexpected breech birth, and the midwife hadn't got there yet, yeah, I could help out.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what women are calling for more and more, and birthing people, you know, that they don't want it medicalized and managed, and they maybe don't want to give birth on their own, but they, as you said, they want some happy medium, you know, someone there that could help perhaps if needed, but more, as you said, someone sat in the corner doing nothing. You know, I'm not a doula. I mean, I love my doula colleagues. I feel very allied with my doula colleagues. But I'm not a doula. You know, I've got all this bloody medical knowledge in my head, 37 years of nurse and midwifery.
Yeah.
You know, I can't put that aside at a birth. And I can't do all the lovely things that a lot of them do. You know, they've got lots of other skills, haven't they? I don't know, homeopathy and aromatherapy. And I haven't got that. And I'm finding more and more what people want me there for is just, as you said, to sit in a bloody corner.
Totally. I think that's the thing.
Robin, not anything, just sit in a corner.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt that, you know, often I will always ask, do you want me to be here at this time, or do you want me to leave the room? Because a lot of births that I attend, I'm working within the NHS. I attend a lot of birth unit births and home births down here in the west of Cornwall, and I very much respect their birth space, and a lot of people are saying that they want to have as minimal interference, absolutely, and and I know the value of not being observed, being in the darkness, the privacy, warmth, love, all that sort of stuff. And so I said, I'm offering to go in and listen in every 15 minutes, for example, but in between times, or when things get a bit more sort of like further on, do you want me to be here? I'm happy, I can step outside of the room. And often people are going, no, I want you in the room, I just want you there, and not to do anything, but you're just. And I remember reading somewhere, like I used to knit. I haven't knitted at birth for ages, but I did used to knit. And I remember reading somewhere that idea of somebody who would be sitting knitting in the corner, if you're busy knitting, you're not worried, are you? You know,
Absolutely.
and they
Yeah,
know that your presence is there, but you're obviously quite relaxed. So
yeah,
that gives
yes,
them space to be relaxed too.
yeah. So if I'm, because I am of a certain age, if I'm having a little nana nap in my chair, if I'm, and you can see my head nodding, I think it has the same effect, doesn't it?
I have got a photograph. I was at a birth. I wasn't on the NHS, and it was a few years ago. And there's a photograph of me like this in this chair,
How
asleep.
wonderful. The theta brain waves, you know, exuding from you, the same as with knitting, isn't it? And people pick up on that. People are so sensitive when they're in labour and they pick up on all that. Whereas if you sat watching and writing and examining, it's a totally different
Totally,
vibe.
totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So how long is it, Joy? How long is it since you came off the register?
So I came off in March and my first client gave birth in May.
Yeah. And what do you do? What have you been doing since then?
Oh my God. Oh my God. The whole thing has been totally mind blowing, Ev, and I really can't explain it. And for people that don't know me, I really hope I don't come across as a nutter. I'm really not a nutter. I have been nutty at certain times of my life. After my mum passed, I had a full on breakdown or breakthrough, as I like to call it. But now I'm like the sanest and most solid I've ever been in my whole life. But birth has opened up like this whole extra spiritual dimension now, which not that I wasn't aware of it before. I was aware of it, but when you have to listen in every 15 minutes and check a pulse every hour and write contemporaneous notes and wonder if you're going to get called from the unit, it takes up a lot of your brain. Whereas when you don't have that and you can just be open, and I was at a birth recently and the midwife said, Joy, what's it like as an ex-midwife, being at a birth and you haven't got any kit, and do you worry? And I said, I don't worry at all. Now and again, there's like this tiny, tiny midwife in the back of my head going, that's not good, is it, Joy? We wish a midwife was here, don't we? But it's really, really tiny, and only if there's a problem. So I don't have the worry. Not that I worry too much as a midwife, but you worry about getting your contemporaneous notes done. You worry that you haven't listened in every 15 minutes because the woman's gone to the loo or,
Yeah.
wouldn't let you. And yeah, I haven't got that. I haven't got the worry I'll be struck off or reported or overstepping guidelines. I can be totally led by what's going on. And yeah, it's totally different, Ev. I feel that I'm in touch with my instinct, and yeah, I'm going to mention that word again, the divine, the energy that we all come from and
Yeah.
go to, and I see the connectedness of it all. And it probably does sound like total wackiness.
No, it sounds amazing. And I think I had a glimpse of that at that recent birth, which I won't go into it. But in terms of just being there, where you feel this connection to the space and to her, and it was just, yeah, there is something, and you're right, it is different. I know before, because I had a period where I doulaed before the insurance was an issue, and that was amazing, and I learned so much. And I, like you, I feel so glad, I'm blessed I was welcomed into that community by Maddie, with the developing doulas, and feel, yeah, I've always felt very akin and as part of that, and they've always got me because I get them, and not everybody in the NHS has probably got me, which has got me into, like, it's been a real struggle in the past. Right now I've got wonderful colleagues who just go, yeah, that's Ev, she wears crystals in her bra and thinks outside of the box, and that's really amazing. But that being in the space not as a registered midwife, and that you're just there in a different position, it is pretty amazing.
It's really, really amazing. And you know, the birth I was at recently, and again, I won't give details because I haven't got any consent to do so, but it blew me out of the water after 21 years of attending births. This birth blew me out of the water, and I cannot see the woman without crying. And I'm free to cry, you know, every time I go around there. I don't have to be the professional, you know, I can cry and open my heart and say, I still haven't got words for what happened at that birth. There are no words. We tried to take a few pictures afterwards and they all came out blurred, and you know, nothing was clear, but I think they capture the magic of something that you can't capture, something that you can't describe. But yeah, it has blown me out of the water and really opened me up to what I can be doing in the future.
You did the shamanic dimensions of pregnancy, didn't you? A while back. Do you feel like, because you did that while you were a midwife? I mean, and I haven't done it, but I know a bit about her work, and that's Jane Hardwicke Collins, isn't it? You know, do you feel that you are different now, you know, and the way that you approach birth or how you work with people?
Yeah, that course, it was a year-long course. It started off being called Shamanic Midwifery, and then she got in trouble with the Australian Midwifery Board and had to rename it.
That's right.
Shamanic Womancraft. But it is basically helping women and birthing people through the major life transitions, you know, and seeing the connectedness of everything. So how we were born, you know, is in us and informs a lot of our life. How our first blood was greeted, you know, with shame or celebration, you know, helps us in our transition to being a woman. How we give birth shapes how we're going to parent, you know, in that next phase of our life. And the same with menopause, you know, and preparing for death. So yeah, it's all connected, and not just that level, like everything is connected. And it's really practical course. It's really, really practical. So we all know that women have menstrual cycles and they're influenced by the moon, particularly if we're not living under electric lights. So people that live off grid, you know, are often in sync with the moon. If we live together as women, you know, we can all cycle together. Yeah, we know that the moon affects the tides, it affects women's cycles. We know that the seasons of the earth affect how we feel, you know, if we feel more outward in the summer and more inward in the winter, and you know, everything is so connected. And this last birth honestly has helped me understand the interconnectedness of it all. You know, I'm going to sound like a complete weirdo, Ev.
No, it's lovely. It's beautiful.
Be ranting about this, and I didn't do Jane's apprenticeship, but I did serve under her for a number of years at her workshops. And she said, "Joy, you can teach the shamanic dimensions of pregnancy." And I said, "Oh no, I can't, Jane." But what came to me after this last birth is I can and I should. So it's on my list to contact Jane. So if you watch this before I speak to you, I'm going to be contacting you, because women need to know about this. You know, everyone needs to know about this dimension, about connecting with babies in utero and communicating with them and finding a connection to spirit, or whatever you call it.
I bought her 10 Moons book. I'll tag her in this actually on Instagram. But I bought the 10 Moons book, and it's like, oh yeah, that's just everything in a nutshell. It's beautiful. And definitely, if anyone out there is listening who is pregnant at the moment, go and get the book. You know, if you want an alternate view of how to, you know, sort of prepare for birth, it's beautiful, isn't it? And there's the bit of her own story where, you know, this is something I talk about and I spoke about at the last birth I was, you know, to feel, where is your baby, you know, feel whereabouts, connect, put your fingers inside and connect with the baby. And she talks about how she could feel her baby coming down, and she said, I didn't know whether the baby was me or it was the baby, and it was just the way she talks about it is amazing, and it makes such sense, you know, and that there is this otherworldliness, there is this absolutely spiritual and dimension, and you know, to birth. I mean,
Yeah.
Pregnancy, birth, postnatally. My thing is definitely that whole labour and birth period, but you prepare for it, and it is important to think of, you know, you can't just go into it. I think I mean, maybe you can, and you can have just this, you know, moment, but it's sort of breaking down. You need to sort of let go of the stuff, and us as midwives, doulas, you know, to sort of to be open to it. Definitely. And breaking down what we think we know, and letting go of stuff to be able to experience it.
And it's not airy fairiness, you know. We know, even if we're the most scientific of midwives or doctors, we know there's an awful lot we don't know about childbirth. There's an awful lot of history in it. There's an awful lot of magic. Things that doctors have said cannot happen, will not happen, should not happen, happen.
Yeah.
You know, we see magic all the time. We see miracles all the time, you know, that can't be explained by science. So we just need to open our minds just a little bit to all this wonder that's out there, and all the bloody connectedness. I was just looking up, if you saw me scrolling on my phone, a quote by Jane Hardwicke Collins. And this is one of my favorite ones. And it's not about karma, it's about the lessons that come to us when we've been through really strong experiences. So you have the birth that you need to have to teach you what you need to know to take you to the next place on your journey towards wholeness.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
And this is everything. And I'm speaking as someone who planned a home birth for my first baby 28 years ago. I was a midwife at the time. I thought, I'm not going into a bloody hospital. I ended up with a baby in a brow presentation. My labour was augmented. I had to have an epidural. I got to 9 centimetres, had an emergency cesarean, PPH, postnatal depression. So I'm someone who's had a traumatic birth, and yet 28 years later, and it did take a while, not 28 years, but it did take a while for me to see the magic in that, and what I'd gained from that, and how strong I was because I went through that. And you know, I did a I don't know, it's an Instagram thing recently on finding the treasure, you know, diamonds and gold. Diamonds are under immense pressure, aren't they? And gold is found in the darkest of places, and we don't find it straight away. You know, after a shit birth, I wouldn't say to someone, but there's treasure in that. You know, I'd say, you know, you're in the dark, you're in the shit, you know, and let's try and care for you in that time. But with time, you can claim it. And Jane talks about the sacred wound. You know, when we're wounded, we can gild it, we can find the lessons in it. And oh my God, anyway, sorry, I could go on all day.
No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that quote. That's really, really lovely, beautiful. It's always a joy to speak to you, Joy. And that's really important. I've got to say to people, you know, it's like, you find the people that you connect with, and that, you know, that I know you can sit alone at home wondering, oh, what am I doing, and stuff. And I'd say, you know, I know I was going to ask you is, what would you say to somebody who's out there at the moment, you know, sort of, you know, thinking about this? Maybe there are more midwives who are considering what they are doing. We know that maternity care is in a crisis in the UK, and probably around the world in a lot of places. And there will be lots of midwives, as far as I know. I think there was a recent thing saying how many midwives were planning to come off the register. And I expect a great many of those. Some of them will, some of them won't. A lot of people feel that they've got no choice, really. And others will go and leave and do something completely different. But those of us who are called to be with birth, and this is something that is like in our bones, really, what would you say to people, you know, thinking about this and just wondering, maybe at the beginning stages?
I mean, basically, there's always a way, but the time might not be the right time for you at the moment. So I feel very privileged in a way, but I know that I'm not privileged, because I do believe that we have a hand in our own good fortune. And I've worked bloody hard for 37 years in and outside the NHS, in jobs that I haven't always liked, because I haven't had to put food on the table, but I've had to contribute to the income. I'm really privileged, but again, perhaps it's not a privilege that I'm with my husband and he's always been the main wage earner. So this is a major consideration when people consider coming off the register and giving up their NHS job. There isn't job security, but you can make a living wage. You can diversify in a lot of ways. You can be an antenatal educator, you can become a doula, you can become an independent midwife. I know lots of good independent midwives that haven't got insurance, and a lot of them are now working with us birth keepers. So they provide the antenatal and postnatal care, and we step in for the birth.
Yeah.
Which is
amazing.
Really well. Yeah. And what I see, Evany, is this splitting of the profession. So when we're talking about midwives and we're talking about doulas, it used to be the one profession, didn't it? The autonomous practitioner that cared for the family. And I see that it is split. What I see now is that we're coming back to this midline. We will have people filling the gap between the two. So there is always a way to work, and whether you do it legally or illegally is up to you, and what you think about the law is up to you. Yeah, I like to think I'm a law-abiding citizen. I wouldn't do anything to harm another human being, but you cannot accuse me of acting as a midwife at a birth when I'm being a good Samaritan and just being a good person who just happens to have lots of knowledge.
Exactly. You can't take that away. That's exactly what I think. Everything that I know and what I've learned is in me. Like you can if I decided to step off the register, okay, so I can't call myself midwife written down in my job title.
Yeah.
Of course I'm a bloody midwife. Midwives have been around for since time began, people who were at births, maybe they weren't called midwives back then, but that's what we know as what a midwife is. And like you said, a doula is a doula, a midwife is a midwife. And I love following Indie Birth and what they do, and I love her podcast. Definitely, if you're watching this or listening, go and listen to them as well as my podcast. It sort of resonates very much, that there is different ways, and people want different things for their pregnancy and birth journey. And then I think as a human race, shouldn't we be able to do that for people, and be what people need rather than what we are telling them what they should have.
It's all part of the revolution. I saw a post from Vanessa earlier talking about a revolution. This is our revolution. We're English, we're British, we have a very particular way about going about things that may be different to how it is on the continent. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
We've got a really quiet revolution happening because women and birthing families, they're asking us to do this for them, and we're doing it, and that's revolutionary. I reckon.
Oh, well, that is a beautiful end to a beautiful talk with you. I will definitely be you will come back, won't you, Joy? Come back again and talk some birth stories and some midwifery skills as well. That would be really lovely to share. So I'm going to sign off now, and then I'll put all the details in the notes underneath. So there's links to Joy, so you can find out more about her, and also anything else. Well, contact Joy. What's your Instagram? Do you know what it is?
No.
Birth with Joy. It's Birth with Joy, something like that. Birth with Joy. And I'm Evany.Lynch, and she might have some dots in there, I don't know, but follow her, she posts good stuff. And then you've got a website. Is it Birth with Joy? It's
www birthjoy.co.uk, and it's really funny because Kemi and I are both Birthjoy.
Yeah.
I think I'm .co.uk and she's .org or .com or something.
That's nice. So you'll either hit on Joy or Kemi.
And it's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Perfect. That's my next. I must get Kemi on here. That'll be my next one.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Joy. I'll say bye, and then I'm going to stop recording. Bye.
Bye.